All right, Eddie Hearn is back on the show, back in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, after crisscrossing time zones, Texas, New York, London, now over in Riyadh, supporting his guy, Bam Rodriguez, who was another title unification fight, which we're going to get to in just a minute. But Eddie, I got to start with what's happening this week with AJ and Jake Paul. Now, you played it coy a little bit over the last couple of weeks with all this, but now that the deal is done, now it's official. Give me the real on these negotiations, from first contact to first offer to the discussions with DAZN, any obstacles that came up over the last couple of weeks as you were trying to get this over the finish line. Kind of walk me through how this deal got done.
We kind of done a brilliant job of actually, I mean, it was kind of half broken, but no one really broke the story, which is quite unique when I'm involved because I've got a massive mouth. And obviously you've got Jake Paul, you've got every journalist in the world trying to look into what's happening. I just think the key reason behind that is no one can quite believe it. It was like the most unobvious pick, the most unobvious fight. And probably about 3 months ago or so, we got approached, maybe a little bit more by Nikita, saying, look, Jake really wants to fight AJ. And we're like, okay, well, we started talking a little bit about money and he said, yeah, we'd like to do it next February or March. And we just and then all of a sudden, bang out the blue, they announced Gervonta Davis. And I was like, right, whatever. Yeah, kind of used our name in vain, if you like. And then obviously Gervonta Davis fell through. And then we got a phone call from Nikita saying, like, do you want the fight? And I thought, here we are, we're back to square one. I said, listen, if you want the fight, we can't say no. I mean, it's impossible. So let's talk numbers. Obviously, we've got a hurdle to overcome with DAZN. The fight's quite quick. And we started talking numbers. We got to a point where we were very happy with the number. We then had to go to DAZN and say, look, we appreciate we're exclusive to you, but this is a tremendous offer. We're going to go in there, we're going to knock this guy out in a round or two, and then our profile is going to go through the roof, and then we're going to come back, have a big fight, then fight Tyson Fury. And they kind of acknowledged that it was almost too good to be true as well for all of us. I then wanted to, speak to Turki Al-Sheikh, and we've done a lot of work with him with Anthony, and I know he's had his differences around the Jake Paul stuff, and I think his biggest thing about that is as long as it's a real fight, it is what it is. I don't really like exhibitions. I said, no, there is no way we're doing an exhibition. And by the way, I mean, the most ludicrous thing I still see in the comments is, I bet there's something in the agreement where AJ has to go easy on him. Oh, you couldn't be further from the truth, mate. I mean, exactly the opposite, right? So anyway, Netflix, everybody's on board, and then boom, Jake signs. And it's like, what are you doing? I mean, respect on one hand, for obviously the criticism of you never fight a real fight. I mean, he's gone from one extreme to the other. I don't know what it was. Pressure, madness, delusion. But we're here. And, our plan was to have an 8-round run out. Probably actually on this week coming, we talked about, or later on. And we're going to have that run out against Jake Paul for a near career high payday. So we're over the moon.
When you were going through this, like one of the things I was hearing was that Nikita Badarian, Jake's partner, was not as keen on this as Jake was. That Jake was the one driving this. Did you get that sense at all in these talks?
Yeah, I think you never know what to believe when you're speaking to not just those guys, but obviously when you're negotiating, everyone's got a different act. It could be good cop, bad cop. Nikita's going, oh, I don't want him to take this, and Jake's in the background saying. But I think you're on the right path. I don't think it was Nikita didn't want him to take it. I just think maybe Nikita wasn't quite on the delusion train that Jake's on with the camp. And even when you hear it now, it's like, he's coming off a knockout defeat. He's past his best. He's stiff. I mean, when they say things like, Nikita says, this is a more dangerous fight, but this is a much easier fight than Gervonta. Gervonta's got speed. Wait till you get in the ring with Anthony Joshua and you see that speed coming at you. I mean, it's going to be absolutely huge. And like I said, I give Jake the respect, but just really ill-informed I think, by people around him that, and again, people go back to sound bites of the past and, and listen, when I talked 3 years ago, he was very, very average. I still, he's improved a lot, nowhere near world class. And as I said, this guy's like top, I don't know, 60 in the world at cruiserweight, something like that. I mean, some of the guys we were looking at for the 8-rounder were probably in the top 100 of the heavyweight division. So I'm not saying they were easier fights than Jake Paul, but for an 8-round run out, we're very happy with our position.
Yeah, but I know who you were looking at for that 8-round fight. When you book guys from the northeast of the U.S., Eddie, I'm going to find out who they are. Who's a fine guy. I think, Cassius Chaney came out and talked about it. I think he was quoted publicly saying he was the guy.
We had 3 or 4 people who we were looking to fight, and Cassius Chaney was one of them. I mean, it was an 8-round fight. I felt like it was a fairly respectable opponent. Everyone's going to moan. Whatever you do, everyone's going to moan.
Yeah. No, so, Cassius would have been, he would have been fine.
Yeah.
The danger is there for Jake Paul, but I would argue the pressure is now all on Anthony Joshua. Like Jake, to me, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. If Jake gets this the second half of the fight, Jake can celebrate. Like Jake's won. Like if he gets the 5th round against Anthony Joshua, to me, he has won this event.
Yeah, but it's. I mean,
you're skeptical that will happen.
I mean, aren't you? I mean,
I am. I'm deeply skeptical, but I'm just saying now.
The difference in this kind of fight is once you get up close and anywhere near any kind of clinch or anything, and the worst thing for Jake is it's not that just that AJ explodes within a clinch. AJ can fight long, he can fight short. I mean, the right hand he won't see. I mean, we talk about the right hand that knocked out Francis Ngannou. Forget the right hand. Worry about the uppercut on the inside. Worry about the left hook. Worry about the jab. I mean, the jab could knock him spark out. I mean, that's the reality. But if he gets hit by anything, it's over. It's just how it's going to be over. You're going to get him clean, or you're going to, beat him up to a position where the ref's just going to have to jump in. But listen, if it goes 4, 5, 6 rounds, listen, good luck to him. Like I say, he's not, he's done the camps, he's done the spars. It's not like this is a guy who's never fought before. He's just well out of his depth. And to be honest, you see a few people say, we see that every week on fight cards. Do you know what I mean? But this is obviously at an extreme level of profile.
Well, yeah, and I've been saying that since this fight was announced. The critics that say it's an abomination or shouldn't be sanctioned, I encourage those critics to go to the prelims of a card, where you see, which is totally normal, a young superstar prospect. I use Joshua Edwards in the U.S., who I've called a few times. The guys he's fighting, I would argue the gap between Joshua Edwards and the guys he's fighting is a lot more significant than the gap between
it's just
Jake
a profile.
Paul.
But I can't sit here and tell you it's competitive.
No,
it's not.
Is
it a one-sided fight? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not like this isn't a YouTuber, like a misfits guy fighting Joshua. This is a professional cruiserweight fighter stepping up to heavyweight. It's just nowhere near as good as Anthony Joshua. But the whole world's going to tune in to see what happens.
You think it beats Mike Tyson's numbers?
I don't know. Look, Mike Tyson's Mike Tyson, and a lot of the fascination of that is the age, like the name, everything. I mean, but I think when you see these two next to each other, particularly on fight week and weighing in, and you see the look in Joshua's eye, I think, this is the shock factor of the audience in this. This is like, oh my God, what is about to happen? And that's going to drive a big number.
AJ is good with the 245 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, he doesn't want to, I think last few work times he's come in 255, but it's quite unique because, he sent me a video this morning of himself on the scales, and it's something that he's never had to do before. So, and he will have to drop weight, and it's not a huge amount of time. But listen, we've got to do something. I mean, is it a disadvantage for AJ? Yeah, ever so slightly. But in the grand scheme of things, we accept.
Last thing on this, Turkey at the Ben Eubank fight sort of laid out the plan, said February was when he wants to
Yeah.
see AJ back. Is that still your plan to get through this fight in
Absolutely,
December?
yeah. We've pretty much agreed our plan with His Excellency, which is a fight in February, and then of course the big one. I mean, he's still got to do the deal with Tyson Fury, but we're in on the plan. So hopefully he can get Tyson Fury over the line. He doesn't often fail for those big fights, and then we can go Jake Paul, solid fight in February, Tyson Fury, and that'll be a very nice year.
You were around Turkey. You were around Spencer Brown, Tyson's promoter manager there, Frank Warren. What are they saying about Tyson's availability for that? Because publicly he's playing the game of I'm out.
I'm not really I'm just leaving it to them. I mean, I believe that, I don't think he'd entertain the conversations if there wasn't a deal to be done, quite honestly. And there's always a deal to be done. It's just down to the money more than anything. So, I'm confident that His Excellency can deliver.
Conor Benn, you had to have been over the moon with that performance. Look, everybody's been kind of focused on Eubank and how he looked. I thought Conor showed real improvement. I mean, is he a pound for pound guy right now? No, but he was.
It's just boxing, isn't it? Like, all of a sudden a guy performs really well. Oh, the other guy shot at the weight. It's like, well, was he shot at the weight last time when he actually went and had a 12-round war? Or was it just this time? Or was it just suit you to say he was shot at the weight? Like, Eubank is at the back end of his career. I don't think he's very good. Is he a world-class middleweight? Yeah, probably. Isn't he elite middleweight? Absolutely not. But Conor Benn won every round and dropped him and nearly stopped. I mean, it was a complete masterclass performance from a young man that doesn't really box with a lot of patience and calmness. And I thought he boxed really, really well. And, when you look at the big names, he's got a huge personality. He's a great athlete. He looks the part. And he's going to, those two fights are going to really put him in a good position as a fighter to win a world title. Obviously, the big thing now is 47. Can he get there? He's adamant he can. The science says he can. But it's going to be an interesting Christmas while he just, takes that period. But everyone's calling him out. He's not going to struggle to get a fight. We'll just see where he returns in the first quarter of 2026.
So let's talk for a minute about that. I saw a picture from your frenemy, Keith Conley, the manager of Conor Benn. He's with Frank Smith, or was with Frank Smith in New York this past week. What are those conversations like? I mean, how you've had some back and forth with Keith over the years with other clients, getting things over the line. When do you want to bring him back? Do you think it's going to be somewhere between 47 and 54 when he comes back?
No, I think he wants, he only really wants big fights. He's not interested, he's just had 2 massive stadium fights. He's not going to want to come back and fight for small money. He wants the biggest fights possible. In an ideal world, his number one pick is Mario Barros, which is about the same number one pick as about 8 people around that weight class as well. And Ryan Garcia. So ideally, we fight the winner of Ryan Garcia against Marius Barrios. But it's very likely we may fight in the meantime. I quite like the Lewis Crocker fight because I think that's a really good, England versus Northern Ireland. And, I just think it's a good fight. I think Conor's probably got his mind profile-wise on some bigger fights like that. But you go and pick up a world title and it's a very good fight, a competitive fight, then there's things to be done. Obviously, Shakur is messaging him non-stop. After I beat Tio, I want to fight you. You got the Haney Norman winner this weekend is a great fight. You got Rolly Romero's been ordered to fight Giasov. What's going to happen there? So I think the key now is to see if that 47 is really achievable.
Oh, do you want to see him in a big fight at 47 right away? Because he's 29. It's going to be an adjustment coming back down.
If he can make it safely and if he can perform at the levels he's been performing at, I would love to see him fight for a world title. 54 is another kettle of fish. I mean, I feel like Xander Zayas is beatable. Barras Abu is beatable, but they're fighting each other. They're going to be out for a while. Then you've got Boots, you've got Vergil Ortiz, you've got Fundora, you've got Mertzalaevs fighting Josh Kelly. So it's a minefield out there at 54. So we've got to see what's possible.
Yeah, if he can make 47, that's the weight class where he can win some big fights and be in some big fights. You mentioned Boots and Vergil. We're all kind of still out here waiting and wondering how this is all going to play out.
Same. Nothing from our front. I mean, we were promised by Eric Gomez that as soon as that fight was over, we'd start trying to make that fight. It's been very quiet so far, but it has only been a week, so let's see. I would think, the zone will be chasing all of us, really. I mean, they've given us the fights and they've given everybody the paydays, and now they want to see that fight. So hopefully we can get locked in with Golden Boy and have a positive conversation soon and try and make, as we said, what we feel is, I mean, that was a great little exercise for Boots heading there. It was a great performance from Vergil. I feel like everybody did their job over the last couple of weeks and it's built into a wonderful fight. So hopefully we can make it happen.
Are you still feeling confident there? I mean, Golden Boy right now is rolling out they're rolling out their schedule of other things.
Yeah, when you start coming out, we want 10 million, we're the A side, it's just, it's not the greatest body language or rhetoric coming that way. But that sometimes, I feel like we were quite aggressive in that space because we wanted to show everybody that we really want the fight. And sometimes when you are a bit aggressive in the short term, just gets everyone's back up a little bit. And hopefully when the dust settles, everyone can be sensible.
Does Boots care about the A side, B side stuff?
Not really. I mean, you'd always have to fight your corner. It's my job to do that, but we wouldn't lose. It's a bit like Eubank Ben. I mean, we had to give up everything. Everything. Neither was a world champion. And basically Eubank said, if I don't walk second, if I don't have my name first on the poster, then this fight ain't happening. And in the end, it's like, Conor, I know it's not fair, but just, and I don't know, like if he really wants it to be Ortiz v Ennis, does Giron care? Probably not really. Should we get parity in some kind of respect? Yeah, probably. But if they want to make an excuse why not to make the fight, we don't want that to stand in the way.
All right, last thing for you. You are in Riyadh to support Bam Rodriguez, and I want to start with where's Bam's head at? He just had, I believe he just had his second kid. He was watching over FaceTime during the open workouts. I mean, how are things with him right now?
Yeah, I've just literally got to Riyadh today, so I'm about to leave for the press conference to see him. I think Bam's a really chilled guy. Obviously, our team have been on the ground with him this week. Robert Garcia is very close with his brother, everybody. So I think this is something that Bam would have anticipated. He's not, he's a very, not emotionless guy, but very calm guy. You're not going to see him lose his temper and get ratty. I think he's come here knowing this was how it was going to be. And they made that decision, obviously, together. He looks brilliant. I saw him hitting pads the other day and it just looks sensational. I think it's a great fight. I mean, I saw Puma at the workout yesterday doing one-handed press-ups, screaming down the camera. He's a really high-energy guy. And I think the matchup and the style matchup is going to be really good. But I think it's going to be one where Bam will show his pound-for-pound greatness. And I think you see another showcase statement from him on Saturday.
Do you think this is more or less difficult than the fight he had with Cafu a few months ago?
Maybe more in terms of more taxing. Cafu was a very good counter puncher that could really punch. He kind of had a strange approach in that fight, sat on the ropes and trying to lure Bam in and counter punch him and pot shot him off the ropes. And Puma won't do that. Puma will come straight at him. But again, with Bam's feet and his timing and his IQ, that could lend itself to a wonderful performance.
Now, last thing is that you are promoting or working that show a couple of days after Christmas. That in a way is headlining in Riyadh. I know if Bam comes through this fight, you want to make that unification fight. Hopefully he gets that in Texas. He deserves that kind of homecoming showcase type performance. But when you are back in Saudi next month, like how closely are you going to be watching Inoue in the context of a Bam fight? I know Inoue's got Nakatani. That's a huge fight for him in the first half. But second half of next year, is that even remotely realistic to start having this conversation?
At the moment, we're at super bantamweight, and they're a super flyweight, sorry, and he will make the move to bantam at some point. Really, the fight coming up with Taraji on that same card is for the final belt in the division for Bam to be undisputed. That would be a wonderful achievement for Bam to become undisputed at Superfly and then move to bantam. Once that move to bantam takes place, then we can start talking about it. He's one division away. But let's see how he looks Saturday. I think, he's moving real nice. He's still a young man. But I do think Inoue against Bam is, just a dream fight.
All right. Eddie, always appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your time in Riyadh.
Cheers, mate. Take care.